Hey everybody, wish you guys all well. In this video, it's going to be the first video of many. I'm starting a new series here called The Spirit of the Father. And I speak a lot about that on the podcast I've done and some of the videos, solo videos I've done on here. And what my goal is to share movies. I'm a big movie buff and I love movies that show the element of the spirit of the Father. What I define as that spirit of the Father is the pattern of behavior of really purpose over pleasure. And it is the higher aspect of us. It is God the Father. It is the aspect that it's challenging, right? There's great movies, the ability to challenge, the ability to really help other people level up. That to me is a good father. A good father helps people to overcome their weaker self. And that's not easy to do. That's why so few people do it or have the capacity to do it. Generally, you have a lot of bosses instead of leaders. And I think true leadership is that aspect of the father. And different movies express it in different ways. And I'm going to be sharing, whether it be quotes or going over different scenes from movies. And the first one, this one here will be Good Will Hunting. And I'm sure many of you have seen that. It's not a, and these aren't in any particular order. Just going to dive through them. And some of them will be familiar, but I will show, I'm going to also post hidden gems, which I find because those are really the best. Because I ultimately I want people to see movies they've never seen, or have even heard of that aren't that popular. But I also think that some of these movies are rewatchable and they're really great. And sometimes just rewatching them from a different angle, you can see really how powerful this is. And the idea is that I hope that we emulate these movies. That's what a good movie should do. A good movie should leave you with the hero's journey, the idea that that's what we're called to be. We want to identify with the protagonist of the movie, the one who really is the peacemaker and the one who embodies strength, the one who leads others to be the best version of themselves, the overcoming the villain, and again ultimately starting with ourselves. And just to paint this scene, if you haven't seen it, this is the Good Will Hunting bench scene. And just to paint the picture, is just before this you have a cocky arrogant kid, and it's played by Matt Damon, and Matt Damon's playing Will, and Robin Williams plays Sean. And he is there's a scene where, and this is what's so great about this right before this scene is that Matt Damon, again played by Will, I'll just refer to them as Will and Sean in this. Will, he's meeting with different therapists. And what I love about this is that he calls out the bullshit of therapists. And it's so refreshing because I would say a lot of men specifically, they don't want to beat with a therapist. I don't need a therapist. And I think what that really is a call to is that a lot of it's just kind of dogmatic. A lot of it's just kind of, there's a lot of, just because someone is a therapist doesn't mean that they have authority. And he basically questions authority all the time. He doesn't just take what other people say, he thinks for himself. And there's a scene earlier on where there's the bar scene. That's a great scene too, where he's basically challenging a know-it-all. And he's like, yeah, he's like, I might work at a drive-through, but at least I'll be original. I think for myself. I don't just regurgitate what other people say. There's so many scenes like that in this movie that really, again, they're the aspect of the father. And ultimately, in this scene now, he's in trouble, and he has to, one of the things that he has to do is he has to meet with a therapist, and he finally comes across Robin Williams. And when he meets Robin Williams is the first one that basically challenges him back. But the first scene where they met, as Matt basically, as Will in this movie, he pokes holes at all the other therapists, and they don't even want to work with him. And then he meets Robin Williams, and Robin Williams, he goes to poke holes in his thing. He sees a painting, and he goes, "What is it, your wife?" And he's looking for the weak spots of the therapist, and he gets Sean, and Sean reacts, and he knew he got him in that situation. So he goes, "See, I don't need therapy." That kind of vibe. Well, the next scene was the next day, and he sits down with him at the bench. And this is what I really want to dive into in this. And it is, he says to him, they're both sitting on a bench. And he says this, he goes, so Will goes, "So what's this? A taster's choice moment between guys? This is really nice." They're sitting in front of a pond. "This is really nice. You got a thing for swans? Is this like a fetish? It's something. Like maybe we need to devote some time to." And Sean doesn't even respond to that. And what he says back to him is, I thought about what you said to me the other day about my painting. Stayed up half the night thinking about it. Something occurred to me and I fell into a deep, peaceful sleep and haven't thought about you since. You know what occurred to me? Will goes, no. Sean says, you're just a kid. You don't have the faintest idea what you're talking about. Will goes, why, thank you. Sean goes, it's all right. You've never been out of Boston. Will goes, nope. Sean goes, if I asked you about art, you'd probably give me the skinny on every art book ever written. Michelangelo, you know a lot about him, life's work, political aspirations, him, the Pope, sexual orientations, the whole works, right? But I'll bet you can't tell me what it smells like in the Sistine Chapel. You've never actually stood there and looked up at the beautiful ceiling. If I asked you about women, you'd probably give me a syllabus of your personal favorites. You may have even been laid a few times. But you can't tell me what it feels like to wake up next to a woman and feel truly happy. You're a tough kid. If I asked you about war, you'd probably throw Shakespeare at me, right? Once more into the breach, dear friends. But you've never been near one. You've never held your best friend's head in your lap, watch him gasp his last breath looking to you for help. I'd ask you about love and you'd probably quote me a sonnet. But you've never looked at a woman and been totally vulnerable, known someone that could level you with her eyes, feeling like God put an angel on earth just for you, who could rescue you from the depths of hell. And you wouldn't know what it's like to be her angel, to have that love for her, be there forever, through anything, through cancer. And you wouldn't know about sleeping, sitting up in the hospital room for 2 months, holding her hand because the doctors could see in your eyes that the terms visiting hours don't apply to you. You don't know about real loss because it only occurs when you've loved something more than you love yourself. And I doubt you've ever dared to love anybody that much. When I look at you, I don't see an intelligent, confident man. I see a cocky, scared, shitless kid. But you're a genius, Will. No one denies that. No one could possibly understand the depths of you. But you presume to know everything about me because you saw a painting of mine. You ripped my fucking life apart. You're an orphan, right? You think I know the first thing about how hard your life has been, how you feel, who you are because I read Oliver Twist? Does that encapsulate you? Personally, I don't give a shit about all that because you know what? I can't learn anything from you I can't read in some fucking book. Unless you want to talk about you, who you are, then I'm fascinated. I'm in. But you don't want to do that, do you, sport? You're terrified of what you might say. Your move, Chief. Wow. I get goosebumps when I read that because he's challenging him. This is the spirit of the father, and it's hitting so many aspects at once because he's it's just real. It's you hear what does he say right off the beginning? He doesn't even listen to what he's like. He's poking at him again. The first scene, Will is poking him, doesn't even respond to what he's saying, and he's honest. He says, "I was up all night. You know, you really got to me last night." Humility right off the bat. He says, "You know, you really did get to me, but then I went to sleep. I don't give a shit anymore." You know, now you have there's a strength aspect there, and then he just dives all into this. You know, he says essentially saying, "You know everything, but you haven't lived it." And you're afraid to live it. I don't see a confident man. I see a scared shitless kid. And at the end of it, you know, he breaks him down. That's what's so cool about this scene. He breaks him down, and then at the end, he says, "Unless you want to talk about you, I'm fascinated, but you don't want to do that. You're terrified of what you might say." And I love that. I love that scene. Um, I watch it from time to time. It's a reminder of again, this is the spirit of the father challenging people, you know, challenging, and you can see that. You can see that arrogance of the ego once it, you know, thinks it knows everything. And there's just really this, there's just it's no words can really do justice to this scene. It really is powerful, but it's an invitation that we should challenge other people in our lives. You know, the ability to tell the truth. He tells them the truth. You know, and that's not something you really get out of a book. You have to live it, you have to speak it, you got to screw it up. And I think Sean Robin Williams really embodies that character very well in this scene and in this movie. I mean, this is my favorite scene. It's a classic scene in the movie, but I'd invite you to check it out if you haven't seen it, for the few of you who haven't seen it, and those who have, give it another watch. It's really inspiring because that's what we're called to be. We're called to be the Shawns. We're called to challenge other people around us, you know, especially because things are so politically divided. You know, even in the scene, he goes, you can tell me all about these different people, but to really enter that arena essentially is what he's saying. You know, to live it, to go into it, to be willing to it's to be willing to be absolutely vulnerable, as he says, right? To be in a relationship, to be to people at war, right? These people have made decisions, but he's just living in his head. He's just smart. He's a genius, but he's not doing anything with it. And again, great scene. Many more of these videos to come. I'm going to dive into a lot of movies. And I definitely invite you to check out this movie. Check it out again if you've seen it, or just check out this scene. Check out the Good Will Hunting bench scene. And plenty more videos to come on this series, The Spirit of the Father.